The gym fell silent the moment he spoke. "I dropped Manny Pacquiao," the young fighter said, loud enough for everyone to hear. His chest swelled with pride, a grin spreading across his face. This wasn't a whisper meant for casual conversation. This was a statement, bold, confident, almost arrogant. Some fighters paused mid-punch. A trainer lowered the pads in surprise. A few exchanged skeptical glances. The young fighter, Daniel Cruz, didn't notice. He leaned against the ropes, smirking. "I figured him out. He's small. Overrated. I'd stop him in 6. The name hung in the air like lightning. He wasn't just talking about anyone. He was talking about Manny Pacquiao, 8-division world champion, a legend, a man who had defeated some of the greatest fighters in history. The kind of man whose shadow stretched across generations of boxers. Yet Daniel dismissed all of that, treating the legend like a junior opponent. A few nearby fighters whispered, "Are you serious?" One trainer muttered, "You might want to be careful with your words." But Daniel's confidence was unshakable. For him, talking big was part of his image. Online clips had built him as fearless, unstoppable, untouchable. What he didn't know, what no one had told him, was that Pacquiao was walking into the gym that very moment, quietly, no entourage, no press. Just here to train. And then the doors opened. Heads turned. The rhythm of gloves hitting bags slowed. Conversations died down. Everyone sensed it, something was about to change. Daniel continued talking, laughing, bragging, oblivious, until the room subtly shifted. The air felt heavier. The legend he had just disrespected was standing only feet away. At that moment, it wasn't about past sparring claims. It wasn't about internet clips. It was about what would happen next, and everyone in that gym was about to witness a lesson far bigger than a fight. Daniel Cruz wasn't just another fighter chasing attention. He had a reputation, undefeated, explosive, quick hands. Fans loved him for his flashy knockouts and bold statements. Every punch he threw seemed to have a story. Every social media post a promise he was unstoppable, unafraid, untouchable. But here's the catch. He had never faced anyone remotely close to the level of Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao wasn't just a boxer. He was a legend, 8-division world champion, a man who had faced history's greatest fighters, a southpaw whose speed, angles, and timing had broken careers, a global icon, and beyond that, a former senator in the Philippines. Daniel saw none of that. In his eyes, Pacquiao was small, past his prime, and most importantly, beatable. He claimed they had sparred months ago. He claimed he dominated. He claimed he had dropped him. And he said all of this publicly, in front of witnesses. Yet no one could verify his story, no videos, no trainers confirming it, just Daniel's confidence. Confidence can be a powerful weapon. It inspires teammates. It motivates a fighter to push harder. But unchecked, it can also blind you to reality. A few younger fighters nodded, maybe convinced by his certainty, maybe thinking, yeah, he might be right. The bold claim had that effect. It made people lean in. But the veterans in the gym stayed silent. They had seen what happens when raw talent meets overconfidence. They had seen careers stall because someone mistook luck or momentum for mastery. And now, the air in the gym had changed. Every person in the room sensed that something was about to happen, that the young fighter's words were about to meet reality, because the moment Daniel boasted, the footsteps at the door were growing closer. Pacquiao was about to enter. No cameras, no dramatic build-up, just quiet authority. Daniel was unaware. He continued talking, laughing, pointing out what he thought were flaws in the champion's style. Every word he said, every gesture, only drew the attention tighter. Not for a fight. Not yet. But for the collision of ego and experience. Confidence can be inspiring, but arrogance, it has a way of inviting consequences. Do you think confidence helps you reach the top, or can it become a fighter's biggest weakness? Have you ever underestimated someone based on age, appearance, or past achievements? If you were in that gym, would you have warned him, or stayed silent and watched what happens? The gym felt heavier the moment the door clicked shut. Daniel was still mid-sentence, talking about angles, timing, and how easy it was to beat a legend. But now, the room had subtly shifted. Conversations died. The rhythmic thud of gloves hitting bags slowed. Everyone sensed it, something monumental was about to happen. Then he stepped in. No intro cameras, no grand entrance, just calm, confident steps. Manny Pacquiao entered quietly, scanning the room with eyes that had seen decades of fights, victories, and lessons. Daniel froze mid-laugh. His bravado faltered as he realized the man he had just disrespected was right there, standing only a few feet away. Pacquiao didn't shout. He didn't glare. He didn't demand respect. He simply observed. I heard you said you dropped me, Pacquiao said softly, yet the words cut sharper than any punch. Daniel tried to laugh it off. It was just talk, you know how it is. But the laughter didn't land. The gym was silent. Every fighter, every trainer, every bystander held their breath. Pacquiao nodded once. Calm, measured. What can talk in the ring? Not a threat, not an insult, just a statement. And it carried weight heavier than any punch. Daniel's chest tightened. He squared his shoulders, trying to regain control of the situation. But it was clear the balance of power in the room had shifted. Moments ago, he had commanded attention with confidence and bluster. Now every eye was on Pacquiao. There was a subtle lesson in the way the legend moved. No rush, no aggression, just presence, composure. Respect earned through experience, not words. Daniel had a choice. Step back and reconsider, or double down on his bravado. Because sometimes the real confrontation isn't physical. It's standing there, words already spoken, knowing the truth has arrived, and you can't take them back. The gym seemed to shrink around him. Every movement Daniel made was now measured against a master. Every gesture, a test of his ego. Pacquiao didn't need to prove his skill yet. His mere presence, calm and unshaken, made the young fighter's earlier claims feel hollow. For the first time, Daniel realized confidence alone doesn't intimidate a champion. Experience does. Discipline does. Quiet authority does. And in that charged silence, the young fighter understood that the next moments, the sparring, the lesson, the truth, would define him far more than any boast ever could. What would you do if someone you bragged about confronted you calmly? Would you double down or step back and learn? Have you ever faced someone more experienced than you and realized words weren't enough? The ring was cleared. No cameras, no press, just trainers, fighters, and the quiet anticipation of something extraordinary about to unfold. Daniel stepped through the ropes first, bouncing lightly on his toes, adjusting his gloves, his jaw tight. He told himself it was just another sparring session, but inside, his heart was racing. Every eye in the gym was on him now, and for the first time, it wasn't his confidence drawing attention. Pacquiao entered calmly. No theatrics, no rush, just steady, deliberate movement. His presence alone shifted the room. The energy changed. Everyone instinctively leaned in closer, waiting. The bell rang. Round 1. Daniel came out fast, throwing jabs and combinations with all the flair he could muster. He wanted to prove himself, to justify every word he had spoken about beating a legend. He moved aggressively, circling, feinting, pushing for dominance. Pacquiao didn't flinch, he didn't rush, he watched. A small step here, a subtle pivot there, every movement measured. Daniel's punches grazed him but had no effect. He began to feel the first hint of doubt. Round 2. Pacquiao initiated this round. Not with brute force, but with rhythm, timing, and precision. He shifted angles effortlessly, countering Daniel's strikes. Each missed punch chipped away at the young fighter's confidence. A clean counter landed. Another. Each one Daniel's movements grew frantic. He had speed, yes, but he lacked control. Pacquiao's patience made him overcommit. By the end of round 2, it was clear this wasn't just a sparring session. It was a lesson. One Daniel wasn't fully ready to understand. Round 3. Daniel came in determined, swinging hard, trying to regain momentum. For a brief moment, it looked like he might corner Pacquiao. But the legend pivoted. A quick left hand landed perfectly. Daniel stumbled, not badly, but visibly shaken. Another combination followed, smooth, controlled, precise. And then, a perfectly timed counter caught him mid-step, disrupting his balance completely. He went down to one knee. The gym gasped, not with mockery, not with celebration, just stunned silence. Pacquiao didn't celebrate. He stepped back immediately, giving Daniel space. Then, calmly, he offered a hand to help him up. The bell rang. The sparring session ended. It wasn't about humiliation. It wasn't about proving dominance. It was about showing the difference between confidence and skill, between ego and experience. Daniel had learned a lesson that no words could have conveyed. And the gym understood that sometimes, the quietest moves teach the loudest lessons. Could you stay composed if you were being humbled by someone much more experienced? Have you ever faced a moment where skill mattered more than confidence? Would you learn or resist if someone corrected your arrogance? As Daniel steadied himself, the gym didn't erupt. There was no cheering, no laughter, just silence. Everyone understood what had just happened. Manny Pacquiao hadn't tried to hurt him. He hadn't needed to. He had made his point quietly but unmistakably. After helping Daniel to his feet, Pacquiao leaned in and said something calm, almost conversational. You're talented, but talent without humility fades fast. It wasn't delivered with anger, not with embarrassment. Not to humiliate, it was advice, a simple observation. A mirror for Daniel to see himself as he truly was in that moment. This is where human psychology plays a role. Confidence can feel empowering. It motivates, it inspires, it carries you forward. But unchecked, it easily becomes arrogance, and arrogance blinds you. It makes you underestimate others, overestimate yourself, and speak before considering consequences. Daniel had done exactly that. He had believed his own narrative. He thought he had figured out the legend, but experience and composure have a way of exposing false certainty. Pacquiao's restraint spoke louder than any knockout could have. In the gym, in that room, everyone could feel it. A single phrase, delivered without theatrics, carried more weight than Daniel's braggadocious claims ever could. Then came the next twist. Despite the attempt to keep the sparring private, a short clip surfaced online, not the brag, not the bold claims, just the exchanges, the rounds, the pivot, the clean counter, the stumble. The internet reacted. Analysts dissected it. Fans debated. But the focus wasn't humiliation. Instead, it was admiration. Admiration for Pacquiao's control, his patience, his teaching without cruelty. Humans naturally notice restraint. A person in power who controls rather than dominates sends a stronger message. Strength doesn't need to be loud. It can be quiet, measured, and intentional. That's a lesson not just in sports but in life. For Daniel, the lesson hit harder than the stumble in the ring. Being wrong publicly forces reflection. Pride is wounded, but clarity follows. Ego clashes with reality, and in that friction, growth begins. Many viewers don't realize how rare this is. Most would exploit the opportunity to humiliate, to make themselves feel superior. But true mastery understands that shaping someone's character quietly leaves a lasting mark. Daniel walked away not just physically unhurt but mentally shaken. He saw where confidence ends and humility begins. In this moment, the pivot, the stumble, the quiet advice, became a turning point in his career. The lesson: bravado may win attention, but humility and skill earn respect. Sometimes the loudest lesson isn't a punch. It's the way someone handles power with restraint. Have you ever been humbled in a situation you thought you controlled? Do you think patience and restraint are more powerful than dominance? How would you react if someone corrected your overconfidence quietly but firmly? By the next morning, the gym felt different. It wasn't just the memory of the sparring session. It was what followed after. The clip had leaked online, not the brag, not the bold words, just the rounds. The pivot, the counters, the moment Daniel stumbled and went to one knee. Within hours, it was everywhere. Fans replayed it. Analysts broke it down. Slow motion clips highlighted Pacquiao's angles. Daniel's phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, notifications, messages from sponsors, friends, fans. Some supportive, some critical, a few brutally honest. In combat sports, losing in sparring isn't a problem. Bragging before a fight, however, changes the narrative. Sponsors and promoters don't just invest in talent. They invest in discipline, professionalism, and image. Overnight, Daniel's image, untouchable, fearless, invincible, had shifted. Interviews scheduled for that week were quietly canceled. Promotional appearances postponed. Nothing dramatic, no press statements, but the subtle consequences were clear. Arrogance travels faster than punches. At first, Daniel tried to control the situation. A short post appeared online. Just work in the gym. Respect to everyone. It sounded neutral, safe. But responses poured in, questions about the brag, the sparring, the lesson. Within minutes, he deleted it. Silence followed. Silence has a unique way of forcing reflection. He returned to the gym days later, early, alone. No cameras, no entourage, no spectators, just training. He wrapped his hands quietly, hit the heavy bag, focused on fundamentals, not flashy combos. For the first time, his attention wasn't on showing off. It was on learning, improving, becoming better. When Pacquiao's path crossed his again, there was no tension, no awkwardness, no superiority from the legend, just a nod. Respect didn't vanish because of one mistake. It shifted based on how you respond to correction. Over the following weeks, Daniel's online presence changed. Fewer boastful posts, more clips of training, conditioning, discipline. The focus shifted from dominance to growth. Months later, when he stepped into the ring officially, he carried a new presence. Still confident but measured. He focused between rounds, remained composed, and bowed respectfully to his opponent after the decision. He won, but the victory felt different. It wasn't louder. It wasn't flashy. It was built on growth, reflection, and humility. Humbling moments can go two ways. They can create resentment, or they can create discipline. The difference lies in whether someone sees correction as an insult or as an opportunity to improve. In combat sports, and in life, setbacks don't define careers. Responses do. The hardest fight isn't always against someone in the ring. Sometimes it's against your own pride afterward. Daniel's moment of public humility shaped him more than any victory could have. His lessons went beyond technique. They were about character. Have you ever experienced a moment that humbled you publicly? Do you believe setbacks can make someone stronger, or do they break confidence? If you were in Daniel's position, how would you handle a humbling moment? Over time, the story stopped being about a knockdown. It became about a lesson, one that resonated far beyond the gym. In gyms across the country, trainers replayed the sparring clip, not to mock Daniel, not to celebrate the stumble, but to teach timing, strategy, and composure. They paused the video at the pivot, rewound the clean counter, and broke down every subtle movement. But eventually, the discussion shifted beyond technique. It shifted to character. What stayed with people wasn't the left hand. It was what didn't happen afterward. Manny Pacquiao could have pressed forward, humiliated Daniel, made the round a spectacle, and dominated every frame. He didn't. Instead, he stepped back, giving Daniel space. In a sport built on aggression, that restraint was louder than any punch. It sent a message about mastery, patience, and true confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to assert itself loudly, that doesn't seek validation from spectators, and that doesn't require ego to feel powerful. For Daniel, the moment slowly shifted from embarrassment to foundation. Initially, he must have replayed the pivot, the counters, the stumble over and over in his mind. Public mistakes have a way of echoing louder than private ones. But within that echo, clarity emerges. Clarity about where you truly stand. Clarity about how far you still have to go. Clarity about who you want to become. Ego thrives in spaces without resistance. When no one challenges you, it grows unchecked. But when someone quietly exposes the gap between confidence and skill, it forces a recalibration. That recalibration is not weakness, it is growth. In the weeks and months following the session, Daniel's public image transformed. Flashy predictions faded. Training clips dominated his social media. Discipline replaced showmanship. Every workout, every post, every action reflected a new focus: improvement, humility, and respect. His next official fight reflected that change. The difference was subtle but visible: measured pacing, disciplined strategy, and a respectful acknowledgement of his opponent. At the end, he won. But this victory was different. Not louder, not flashier, not braggadocious. It was meaningful. Because sometimes, the hardest opponent isn't the one across the ring. It's the version of yourself that believes you are invincible. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't knocking someone down. It's learning how to rise after being humbled. Pacquiao's legacy remained untarnished. Not because he had proven he could still dominate a prospect, but because he taught without cruelty, corrected without humiliation, and led by example. The real shock for Daniel, and for everyone watching, wasn't the stumble. It was the lesson. A lesson about confidence versus arrogance, about humility versus ego, about strength expressed through control, patience, and composure. For viewers, the takeaway is clear: loud words can get attention, but actions measured, deliberate, and respectful earn lasting respect. This story resonates far beyond sports. It applies to work, school, relationships, and life itself. Moments of public correction, when met with the right attitude, can transform careers and character alike. So now we ask you, which part of the story surprised you the most? The initial brag, the confrontation, the sparring, or the humbling lesson? Do you think patience and humility are more powerful than raw skill or dominance? How would you react if someone corrected your overconfidence quietly but firmly? More powerful stories are coming soon. Comment below to let us know which moments impacted you the most. Your feedback helps create even stronger, more engaging stories next time. Remember, sometimes the loudest lesson isn't the hardest punch. It's the quiet demonstration of mastery.